The land explored by our ancestors extends from Altai to the White Sea. The scientific expedition, Trails of Nomads, continues to unveil the path of our forefathers. Its leader is a true citizen of the world. He believes, without a deep understanding of the past, there is no future. Each journey is focused on a detailed study of history and culture. Pilgrim of the 21st century, Ybyray Altynsarin, with a team of scientists, has already visited more than 50 countries. Scientists reveal the exciting secrets of the past. Watch an amazing story of a great journey in the Trails of Nomads program. If we consider the berms on the Turgai land as a sign, then it is quite possible that the historical homeland of world writing is also here. If you look into the root of letters and the alphabet, then it is based on signs. First alphabet in the Kazakh steppe appeared in this region. Both the prominent educator Ybyray Altynsarin, who adapted the Kazakh letters to the Cyrillic alphabet, and Ahmed Baitursynov, who for the first time carried out a language reform in the steppe and introduced the Toti-Jazu system, are sons of the Turgai region. These bricks were most likely taken from the walls of the school, which was built at that time. Bells were also found here later. That is, they were used at school at different times. Now these are exhibits. The 7 bells used by Ybyray Altynsarin himself have survived to this day. 3 of them are kept in the Memorial Pedagogical Museum in the village of Turgai, opened in honor of the prominent educator. There is also an adobe brick which was cast by Ybyray. Amid these exhibits, there is an old portrait and a drawing. All items once belonged to the first Kazakh school located earlier on the site of this museum. The historical building was reconstructed in 1988, and now it is one of the exemplary in educating patriotic spirit of the young generation of Kazakhstan. 19-year-old Ybyray Altynsarin came to Turgai in 1860. It was very difficult for the young man to open a school. Local people were the first to help Ybyray. The real name of Ybyray Altynsarin is Ibrahim. He once began his path to knowledge at school. His grandfather, Balkoja B, forwarding a letter of petition to the government in 1850, provided his grandson with an opportunity to study with 30 students at a school for Kazakh children in Orenburg. After studying during 7 years, Ybyray graduated school with a gold medal in the rank of cornet, that is, with the rank of junior lieutenant. A prominent Kazakh enlightener rose to the rank of state councillor, which was equated to the rank of major general. Already in his youth, Ybyray set himself the main goal of his life, to teach Kazakh children to read and write. He began his educational activity among his inner circle, shared his knowledge with relatives and friends, and in 1861 he began to build a school. During the day, he was engaged in construction issues, and at night, by the light of a lamp, he wrote and prepared textbooks and books on his own. As a result of titanic work and perseverance on the way to the goal, the first school was opened in the Kazakh steppe on January the 8th, 1864. The school was originally opened as a 2-class Russian Kazakh school. 15 children were admitted to school. However, 1 child could not pass the entrance exam, and as a result, 14 children were studying. Participants of the Trails of Nomads scientific expedition got acquainted with the 2-year Kazakh-Russian school in Kostanay, which was opened in due time by Ybyray Altynsarin. The first bell rang in this educational institution in 1864. Now on the site of the school there are 2 institutions. The first is a boarding school for gifted children named after the educator. The second is the Memorial Museum. There is a dormitory for students. There is also a dining room, a large garden. It was a large 2-year Russian Kazakh school. By the end of the 60s of the last century, the building of the educational institution began to collapse. After Kazakhstan gained independence, restoration work began. In 1991, a museum was opened for the 150th anniversary of the educator. It contains a diorama of the interior of the Ybyray school. It depicts the moment of Altynsarin teaching the students. Ybyray was one of the first Kazakh educators to wear a wig. The fact is that he had very sparse hair. In addition, as can be seen in the photograph taken in 1889, both Ybyray and his wife, Icon, is dressed in a special way, but only when they went out. At home, they adhered to national traditions and dressed appropriately. Believing the Almighty alone, let the children go to study and take all the knowledge gained with great attention and diligence, the teacher wrote. These lines, an appeal to children written by the author himself, are posted here. The hall is called Class of the 19th Century. We tried to demonstrate all the furniture of that time. There were such desks here. The student school in uniform was made from materials such as velvet and velour. The first Kazakh teacher paid great attention not only to the knowledge of his students but also to other aspects, including the ability of children to dress tastefully. He personally ordered winter and autumn clothes for the pupils. He taught them to be tidy and clean. Such rules were introduced in all 14 schools that he opened. Among them were the first educational institutions for teachers, for girls, and the first vocational school. This diorama shows the trade school formed in 1886 in Turgai. The school was for boys. Upon graduation, they mastered the skills of making various household tools. They also learned how to sew various shoes and process the skin. Graduates of this school had the opportunity to continue their studies in the city of Krasnoufimsk in another vocational school. Adults also received knowledge in educational institutions opened by Ybyray Altynsarin. School libraries were open for them. Thus, even being among the colonialists, Altynsarin could lead his people to enlightenment. Even with the help of the Cyrillic alphabet, he taught many to read and write and gave them a decent education. He wrote a large number of educational articles, published a Kazakh anthology in 2,000 copies, and the book Fundamentals of Islam. Its first original edition is in this museum. Ybyray Altynsarin's admonition before death completely refutes the ignorant assumption that he was allegedly baptized. His last wish was to invite 99 mullahs, Muslim clergymen, to his funeral. He wanted people of other religions not to attend his funeral. The outstanding son of the Kazakh people died July 17, 1889, at the age of 48 from heart disease. The enlightener was buried 7 kilometers from Kostanay, at his native land and near the burial places of his father and mother. When the members of the expedition came here, they witnessed the construction work there. After a while, a white mausoleum appeared over the grave of the teacher and mentor. A lot of educated and outstanding people were graduates of Ybyray Altynsarin schools, including the leaders of the Alashorda, the founders of the Kazakh newspaper, Ahmed Baitursynov and Dulatov. The next stop of the expedition is the Museum of Two Prominent Personalities in Turgai, opened in 1991. It plays an important role in the education of the younger generation. The color of the wall at the entrance is black. It testifies to the plight of the sons of the Kazakh steppe. Further, the white stripe is the continuation of the justification period. Amid difficult times when many educated people were persecuted, received the stigma of enemies of the people, having arrived at home, he distributed all his works to relatives. There were the Kurik Masal, 40 examples, book published in 1909, and the book Masa, published in Orenburg in 1911. A relative named Erden Aksakal brought these 2 books to the museum after the acquittal of these people. He said that he wanted to donate several exhibits to the museum and brought books wrapped in a felt mat. At that time, it was very dangerous to just hold these books. Therefore, the books were buried in the ground. 5 more books have been preserved in the same way and have survived to this day. Just for this, it is worth visiting the museum where they are kept now. In addition, there are other valuable things left from Akan here. A watch, a patifon, a tin basin. From Jakan, there were such items as a bookshelf, dinner table, tea utensils, water dispenser, a blanket that was used to cover for 14 years, belt made for son Alibek, who died at the age of 10. There is a collection of photographs for daughter Gulnara, made in the camp, and also the things of wife Gaini Jamal. The preservation of all these exhibits has the merit of Dulatov's daughter Gulnara. At the time of her father's arrest, she was only 14 years old. and despite her age, she managed to preserve her father's priceless legacy. At the end of 1928, when the arrested Mirjakip was transferred from Orenburg to Karelia, he asked his Tatar neighbor who was moving to Moscow to take his things with him. He promised to pay for all the services by transfer on a monthly basis, and when he was rehabilitated, he promised to take everything away and that it all would be inherited from generation to another. His daughter Gulnara transported all the things that had been stored in Moscow for 57 years to Almaty. Our director Gaziz Amirhanov also went and brought a few things. Patriot of native land and defender of the interests of the people had a motto, Oyan Kazakh, wake up Kazakh. He died at 5 o'clock on October 5th in 1935 in the Sosnovyets camp from a heart disease. The death notice is also kept in this museum. Document number 533 came to his wife, Gaini Jamal. After death, Mirjakip Dulatov's personal belongings were returned to his wife, a total of 31 items. However, it was not reported where and when he was buried. It was only revealed after her husband's rehabilitation. In 1990, the famous scientist Marat Absametov visited Karelia and found the grave of Mirjakip Dulatov near the Sosnovets camp. A Russian woman named Maria was looking after the grave. The scientist met with a Russian woman who looked after the grave. She told him that her mother had ordered her to look after Mirjakip's grave. She said that he did a lot of good things for their family. After obtaining a permission and opening the grave, it turned out that the remains were indeed of Mirjakip Dulatov. For identification, his daughter Gulnara brought her father's gold denture, which was returned earlier among 31 items. It was inserted and fitted. In 1992, he was reburied in Turgai, in our native Kizbel, on the Ybyray State Farm. Trails of Nomads scientific expedition also visited the Ybyray State Farm. Scientists visited the cemetery where Mirjakip Dulatov is buried and read a prayer there. His patriotic statements, which have become the motto for all Kazakhs, are carved on the tombstone. After the mausoleum, the members of the expedition visited the nearest museum. Some of the things that belonged to Mirjakip are kept here, including those that were transported from the village of Sosnovets. Historians are wondering why the activist was not buried in a common grave for the convicts. The reason is the merits of Mirjakip. Jakan, together with the people from the camp, provided medical assistance to the residents of the village. The staff of the infirmary and the villagers respected the Kazakh paramedic so strongly that they asked the administration to bury him in a separate grave. The famous scientist Marat Absametov wrote about it. The expedition, led by Sapar Iskakov, visited the homeland of Ahmed Baitursynov. He was born in the Akkol village in the winter hut of Mashan on September the 5th, 1872. Now on this side, there is a White House, which was built by joint efforts using the Asar method in 2010. Ahmed spent his childhood in this place. He swam in the Zhilanshik River. He ran barefoot in these places, played. He lived here for 10 years. Then he went to study. Until the age of 24, he sometimes came to his homeland. Later, he began to come rarely. Near the White House there was the grave of Akhan's parents. His father Baitursin Shoshakoli is buried here. There is information that his elder brother Aktas and younger Sabalak were exiled to Siberia. Aktas's wife Ubijan followed her husband to the camp at Kolyma. According to some reports, only Baitursin and Aktas returned from there after 17 years. Upon their return from exile, their fellow countrymen greeted the brothers with great joy and arranged a great holiday. Events date back to about 1902. Akhan's father died 7 years later. After that, his perception of life changed. The fight for freedom cost him his life. In 1938, the people's teacher was shot as an enemy of the people. Therefore, there is only a modest distinctive mark on his grave. In the Turgai region, the struggle for freedom and independence was fought both with the help of a pen and with force. Previously, the expedition members received sufficient confirmation of the use of diplomatic methods. During the current expedition, scientists tried to find out how freedom was defended by force. This is the Historical and Memorial Museum of Zhangildin in the area of the same name. Alibi Zhangildin, together with Amangildi Imanov, led the National Liberation Movement. Studies at the Ybyray Altynsarin school gave an impetus for the struggle. One day, a large caravan came from Turgai, from the Kaiduil village. One teacher arrived with this caravan. Having met with him, Alibi wanted to study. The teacher went to meet him. He explained that Alibi could come to Turgai. So Jangildin told his father about his desire, but he was initially against it. Despite this, Alibi ran away from home and left with the caravan to enter the school. He was the first boy who once pastured sheep to enter the Turgai vocational school. Then he studied at a 2-year Kostanay Kazakh Russian school. Later, he entered the educational institutions of Orenburg, Kazan, and Moscow. In all of them, he mastered the curriculum in a short time and was listed among the best students. However, during his second year at the academy in Moscow, he was expelled from the educational institution for participating in a coup plot. At that time, radical changes began in Alibi's life. He had the idea of walking around the world. He had only 25 rubles. He was wearing a short jacket. He carried a travel bag and a camera on his shoulder, and so he went around almost the whole world. He was the first Kazakh to have traveled around the world. He took with him 2 teachers and 1 engineer. All the places they visited were shot on camera and are stored in the museum. They traveled to Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. They walked more than 12,000 kilometers on foot. They finished the trip in Japan and returned to Moscow. After the expedition, Alibi Jangildin was allowed to live by choice in any city. He chose Turgai and started a new fight. He wrote in the traveler's diary, "Travel has become a real university for me. I've seen inequality between rich and poor." Later, in the struggle for the equal rights of his people, he showed his best qualities. From a trip in particular from Turkey, he brought a cinematographic apparatus called Kok. There were 40 tapes. The whole subject of filming was devoted to the life and work of various countries. Upon returning to his homeland, to the Kazakh steppe, he, together with his friend Amangildi Imanov, pulled a white sheet and showed movies to his compatriots. Turgai region has many museums reflecting the importance of the region in the history of the Kazakh land. Another museum was opened in honor of another eminent fellow countryman. As Buhar Jirao said, this is one of the 4 pillars, Shak Janibek. This is his museum. The most valuable of the exhibits here is a piece of the Butter's banner. This is a commander who, with the help of a small detachment, made a huge army of Kalmyks to flight. According to some reports, he also died here, in the Jangildi district in Tosin-Kum. It must be said that Shak Janibek is a great-grandfather of Ybyray Altynsarin's mother, Ayman. This museum was built in 2 months in 1993. This diorama was completed in 10 days. This is Kazakhstan's first diorama. The Anarakai battle debunked the myth of the invincibility of the Kalmyk army. Amid the troubled times, the life path of a worthy son of the Kazakh people began. He managed to unite and preserve unity. This man is a legend, a sage, Tilep Aspantayuli. The expedition headed by Sapar Iskakov also visited his grave and read a prayer. It was not easy to find his burial site. This took years of searching. During his lifetime, he always carried kobas. He was a very good medicine man and shaman. He was a student of the famous shaman Koylubai. As we know from history, Koylubai was a student of our great Korkut Ata. It is no coincidence that this grave is made in the form of a yurt. There is a legend about Aspantayuli. Once there was a big holiday on the bank of the Uli Zelandchik River. The hosts wanted to receive the blessing of Tilep Aulia. However, the spring flood was a serious obstacle to this. Then the Kobus performer asked to move the yurt, which was erected in his honor, to the other side. According to another legend, Tilep Aulia was buried here. Before his death, he said, "Bury me in the place where my camel stops." Sarakaz is buried there. Sarakaz was his beloved, but they had never been together. Our ancestor Tilep was buried here. Sarakaz is an opposite grave. Next is Bozingen. Bozingen is a camel that accompanied his owner throughout his life. It is planned to write a poem and stage a ballet based on this plot. Experts predict success not only within the country but also far beyond its borders. In addition, concerts and festivals will be organized with the participation of artists and world-class stars. Thanks to such global events, cues of Tilep as Alamjar, Tolgau, Baxi are already known all over the world. 100,000 copies of Aspantayuli's works were sold in 3 months. This is evidenced by the gold disc, which was awarded by the studio Sony BMG in 2006. It is now kept in the Archaic Museum. All this information once again confirms the important role of the Turgai region in the development of the Kazakh civilization. Participants of the scientific expedition Trails of Nomads, having completed their work in Turgai, went to the sacred place for every Kazakh, Ulitau. We will tell you all about it in our next episode.